Welcome back to the YouTube home of Peter Pan lore and Peter Pan facts with me, your Peter Pan hobbyist, enthusiast and journalist. Using my Peter Pan hobbyist, enthusiast and journalist brain and knowledge to bring you fun facts, lore and trivia, talk about the world of the Neverland, the story of Peter Pan. Stargazer is sitting over there behind you watching this video because there is no shelf for him to sit upon, and I need both my hands for this video because today we are going to be delving into a very fun subject that was brought up on the Peter Pan lore Discord channel. Oh, and if you want to join the Discord channel, you can do, as long as you're over 18 for safeguarding reasons. Just chuck your details in the comments or send me a DM on one of my socials and we'll get you on the Discord, no probs. Alright, so it was brought up on the Discord channel and I love this idea and I think it's brilliant. So today we're going to be discussing how I would design the Neverland as a theme park. Can you see it? I've managed to just about get it in frame. I drew you in yellow, but something tells me I should probably go around you in brown. Now, one of the big descriptors we get of the Neverland in the play and the novel is that it's very snug, it's very compact. So I want to draw on that because obviously I'm a fan of the lore and the story. I want to make it as realistic to the source material as possible, but this also means I don't want to make it too snug and small because that might mean that accessibility issues arise. It might also mean that there's just not enough space to breathe and to have stuff going on. So we're going to play with that a little bit. What it basically means is there's not going to be any unutilized space. There is going to be something everywhere, whether it's just something to look at, whether it's a path, a thing, an item, a prop, a piece of nature, something will be happening everywhere, but it's not going to be too hyper intense all the time. I really do want there to be music and or background noise everywhere. I want there to be hidden speakers, so there can be little twinkly bits of music, there can be the sounds of shing, like fairies and like bells and wings going past, there can be sort of musical, just hints and undertones. So it's not going to be like constant playing music all the time, just little hints setting the scene. It's always going to feel very magical and very ethereal. And in some parts, when we get to certain attractions and locations, there'll be more theming, that'll be bigger and louder and stuff, and it'll be very specific. But just as you're walking around, I want it to be quite low level and definitely in the background. So if you don't want to hear it, you can sort of tune it out. But there will be the sounds of fairies and magic and little like chimey bits of music going on wherever you go. I am going to make it as essentially an island. It's not going to be out in the middle of the ocean, of course. It's going to be in a sort of fake ocean, probably man-made, that kind of thing. And we're going to have the car park outside. So if you arrive by a train or a bus or shuttle, you park or you cycle or walk or whatever it is. So this is going to be the entrance and there's going to be the car park. So we shall label this. I want to use a different color. Let's use a different color. Ooh, let's use this color. This looks like a nice color. All right, this is the way in and out. I'm going to read to you from my notes now, which I've stuck to the wall. So, starting at surface ground level, you would arrive from over the ocean. So there'll be boats and bridges to take visitors across from the car park and the shuttle and the stops. The waterway will probably be man-made, like I said, so the water would be designed to be colourful with material at the bottom, so the water seems more bright and vibrant. Now, this wouldn't necessarily be all the way round. There can be some more natural bits just left for the creatures themselves. But in this particular area that people are coming in by, over the bridge or the little boats, that's the bit where there's going to be a special bit of water that has been made so that at the bottom, instead of it being all like earthy and, you know, dingy so you can't really see through, I want this patch of water to be see-through. So you can see all the way to the bottom, and I want there to be sort of rainbow sands at the bottom and stones and pebbles, so it looks really magical. Think sort of oil spill, but not obviously with oil, but done in sort of sand and stones and rocks. So all the way through you get this beautiful rainbow effect. It's magic drawing you towards the island, and as you approach you'll hear the music and the sounds of fairies. There might be little lights going on through the trees, because you can do the really cute little effect, essentially like they did on the stage back in the day, where you've got the torchlight going shing, so you can see the fairies sort of dancing around all over the place. So it's going to draw you into the magic immediately, and you're going to come in this way across the bridge or on the boat. Once you land on the island, there's then going to be pathways. There'll be a main entryway where you can get a map, that kind of thing, and you can follow the paths in pretty much any direction. One of the first places you can go to is the beach. So I'm going to read from my notes again. So a carefully separated beach so that no animals have to inhabit it. So to protect the animals, it's out the way. You can still look at them, and there'll definitely be viewing areas where you can see the animals. But this particular beach is not designated for animals. It's for the visitors for their activities. So you can build sandcastles, you can hang out, but there's also treasure hunting. So one of the big activities I want to do all over the island, whether you get a map for it or you just stumble across them as you're going, is various different treasure hunt spots. So there's going to be one continuous route, or maybe there's a few different routes you can follow, and they'll all have different stopping points where you can find something. Maybe you put the map against something and you do a rubbing and it shows you a picture. Maybe you collect something from the cast members. Maybe you get something by finding it. Maybe you count things and you have to write them all down. And also there could just be some treasure spots. spots. So I really like the idea of one of the activities on the beach, whether or not you're doing a treasure hunt on the map, to be you can go and dig up a spot. It will probably have cast members there, either dressed as lost boys or pirates or something like this, and they'll be there. You can interact with them in character, or they can just have a chat to you and you can dig up this thing. That'll definitely be happening on the beaches just over here, probably around here. So we'll call this area the beach. Beyond the beach, we then move through the pathways and we're going to go into the main part of the island. And this bit is going to start as the forest. So that's going to take up a good chunk of the island, particularly when you first come in, and it's going to be hugely fantastical. So there's going to be a lot of prop trees, a bit like in the 2003 film where they built those tall, brilliant trees, but there's also going to be real ones as well. I really want this to be a place of actual nature, not just fake and props, much as I love fake and props. So I want to combine the two. So anything that can't be done naturally, we can do with props and build with it, but I want it to build with the nature, not just on top or smothering it. So there'll be loads of natural plants and trees, there'll be flowers and bushes, maybe there'll be information about them, and there'll be different ones from all over the place. There can be, you know, a conservatory style area, maybe it can be a lot of warm sort of butterfly house walk-through bit where you can go through. They can be growing all sorts of different plants, there'll be information about them so you can learn all about them, and there'll be lots of fake ones as well that are big prop trees made to look very fantastical, and those can be the trees where we build little fairy houses in as well. There's going to be constant sightings of different creatures all over the place, and as you go through the forest I'll talk more about those. I want there to be lots of colour, lots of vibrancy, lots of magic, lots of glitter, and this will be another place where lots of that music and the sound of fairies, and even the little lights going through the trees to make it look like fairies are darting around, that is definitely going to be very prominent all the way through the forest. One of the small locations I want to find in the forest is the gnomes, who are mostly tailors. So I want us to see little gnome houses, and then maybe there can be a little shop there as well. Maybe it can sell bespoke garments and bits of merchandise, and everyone there can be dressed as gnomes. They can either be just dressed as it to serve you, or some of them can be proper in character being little gnomes as well. Moving on through the forest then. I also want to pay homage to the old woman with the hooked nose. I want to maybe have a little cottage that you can see which has a rocking chair out front, and maybe this is an actor opportunity as well, so there could be someone who's playing the old lady, a sort of witchy lady with the hooked nose. She sits in the rocking chair, and sometimes you can see her and call and have a chat to her, but sometimes she's in a shop as well. And I love the idea of maybe there's a potion shop next to her house, and you can get little potions and trinkets in there as well. And again, there's people who are dressed as gnomes or Neverlandish inhabitants, and sometimes she's in the shop as well. Maybe a few times a day you can even sign up to do a little taster session where you make a potion with her, and that's when the old lady comes into the shop and she helps you to make your own little potion. And they've got special effects like a bubble machine and a smoke machine, and you can make it all happen. That sounds really fun. And now we're going to see something else, and we're going to get maybe our first set piece, and this is the little Wendy House. So this is going to be an area where you can interact with the characters of Wendy, maybe some lost boys, maybe Peter as well. Predominantly this is going to be a place where you can have a photo done with Wendy darling, but this is also going to be an area you can go into. It's not necessarily going to be a playground, it's more of a set piece, but there is going to be a little house. It's going to have the mossy green roof, John's top hat as the chimney, which might be smoking as a little effect. It's going to have the door with the sole of the shoe as the door knocker, the red walls. There's going to be little curtains, roses growing around the outside, probably prop roses, but there could be some real ones as well. All in all, just a very sweet, very beautiful place. Little bits of furniture inside, so maybe you can go in and explore. Here is my crude little drawing. So we've got the Wendy house. I'm also thinking I'd like there to be a den building area nearby. So anyone who's been inspired by the Wendy house, they can then build their own. So I think as a sort of offshoot of this, down here, we're going to have den building. So this will be den building. I cannot spell today. The Wendy house and the den building area, so that you can build your own version of a Wendy house as well. I think it's only right, seeing as we're at the Wendy house, the next thing you can find along that path should be the Lost Boys hideout. Now this is going to be a huge set piece with lots of opportunities for stuff, and I want it to be multiple different levels. So, as we'll know from the play and the original source material, the Lost Boys hideout is underground, and they access it through hollow trees. Now, I want there to be 3 different ways of accessing this house because I want it to be accessible to everyone, but I also want to keep some of the wit and whimsy from the original story. So option 1 is there is going to be a clearing, like glade area where you can go down a narrow tree. So it's going to be probably fake trees, and what you can do is you can step in, and then rather than having to breathe in and out and slide your way down, which feels a little bit dangerous, instead there's going to be a little ladder. So it'll be well lit, there'll be little fairy lights everywhere, and you can step inside these hollow trees, and then you can go down down this little ladder and you can step out. I also want there to be a slide for anyone who doesn't want to climb down. So there'll be a big slide, maybe a spirally slide. So again, it'll be like a huge open tree where you can sit in the open hollow tree and you can slide down into the home under the ground. And then of course there'll be a completely accessible path. So a sort of curved, gently sloping path so you can walk or wheel or go down that path and you can get to the underground hideout as well. And so the underground level of the underground Lost Boys hideout, this is going to be really exciting. There's going to be a treasure hunt section. There's going to be photo opportunities. This is where you can have photos and meet the Lost Boys. Wendy, John and Michael sometimes as well, but predominantly this will be the Lost Boys, sometimes Peter as well. Peter will be flitting around. There may well be a few different Peters every day, but the Lost Boys definitely are always going to be here. You can probably see other ones around the island, but this is one of their main spots. There will be loads of different hints to the original story, lots of different things that you can see, lots of different photo opportunities, so many things all over the wall. You can have a little peek into Tinkerbell's boudoir. Maybe there's an automatic curtain that opens and shuts, so you have to wait for it to be timed so that you can see into it, and you can see all her little Tiddlywinks furniture and stuff. There'll be remnants of when the Lost Boys were living there that you can see from the original story too. There'll be weapons, probably that you can't reach and access, but maybe there'll be some fun play weapons as well. There'll be little bits and pieces of clothing. There'll be the bed up against the wall. Maybe there'll be a timed event that happens a couple of times a day, maybe towards the beginning and then right at the end, where the table in the middle of the room, which is on a growing tree trunk, slowly through the day it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows as the tree trunk gets bigger and bigger and bigger, probably an automated mechanic. So maybe there's a scene that you can sort of come and watch where the Lost Boys and or Peter, they come back in and they have to either chop it down, pretend to chop it down, and then this fake piece of tree comes off and they lower the table, or they could jump up and down on it until it stamps its way back into the floor. Maybe there'll be remnants of maybe the slates and the chalks that Wendy used to have them write down their answers to questions on. And of course, there should probably be the medicine cups as well. I also think there should be fairy dust everywhere. As you go through this room, you can see where other people have come down, so you can see the hollow trees that are accessible. There are also some other prop ones that you can just look at, so you can look up and see through the hollow trees, and there's the big slide as well that people can come down on. I think you should also be able to see pumpkins and mushrooms. Maybe there'll be fake ones that you can sit on. Maybe they'll be sold in the different merch shops as well, so you can get a pumpkin stool to sit on. You can get a little mushroom as well. That could be quite fun. So those can be tested out and they'll all be in this area as well. I'm thinking that to come out, you should all go up a winding path and it should slowly lead you back to the surface of ground level. And maybe as you go, you can see the mushroom that acts as a stopper for the chimney. And maybe you can lift it up and you can peer down into the home under the ground as well. Maybe there's a little smoke machine too. So there's an interactive moment with some cast members, maybe some Lost Boys. So you can lift it up, peer down, and then put it back in again. Quick, the pirates are coming, put it back. That kind of thing could be quite sweet. Now, I want there to be some other experiences to go along with this, and one of the experiences that's happening just outside, back on the main path next to the Lost Boys hideout, is going to be something I have called the Fairydust experience. This does what it says on the tin. This is an experience that you can pay for to go as an optional extra, and it's where you feel how it feels to fly. The premise for this is that you will go into a secure little area away from everybody, so you can't be watched necessarily, and it will be decked out like it's the Neverland. There'll be a very soft, spongy floor in greens. There'll be the walls that are really high and carved and curved, so it looks like a beautiful section of the forest, and it will all be safely done out. You sign a waiver, and there will be actors there who are in Lost Boy or fairy outfits, maybe both, and they will take you through the safety precautions of what you're going to do. You'll get put into a little harness, and then you'll get to pick the fairy dust you want. There'll be a selection of fairy dust. You pick your colour, and then the fairy or the Lost Boy can throw it over you, and then you will be lifted into the air on this harness, and you can have a little fly around the room. Very simple. You're not necessarily going to be doing any flips or anything, just a very simple, you can go up in the air, feel like you're flying. Maybe there's a photo opportunity as well. Maybe you can go up as a group, you can have a group photo. Maybe there's different things you can catch in the air, that kind of thing. So a very sweet little thing that you can do. It can either be just a very simple couple of feet off the ground. Maybe you can go as high as 10 feet, maybe that kind of thing. And you can have a little zoom around the room for maybe 20 minutes or something. And there'll be little slots that you can book into as an optional extra. So this is something else that you can do. So the Fairydust experience, I just think it would be so cool, because for people who've watched the play, you get to feel how it feels to be in the harness. And for everyone who wants to know how it feels how to fly, you get that experience as well. So we have gone from the Wendy House and Den building down to the Lost Boys Hideout. We've also got the Fairydust experience, which is an optional experience you can pay for. I also think that near the Lost Boys Hideout should be one of the rides, or at least where one of the rides begins. And this is a ride that I'm calling the Neverbirds, and it's a monorail flight. So you go up and you go over the island, and it starts you down here near the hideout, and then you go up into the air, and then you can go all the way around. You get a good look over every single thing. You go all the way around, and then you come back to just about the same place. Another idea I've had that I absolutely love is the fairy trail. So this is a little walking trail where you get to feel the experience of being a fairy. So you're going to start by going through all these trees, and you can see these little houses up in the tops, and then you take winding paths and you go up through the trees. But as you get higher and higher up, the trees seem to get bigger and bigger, and the fairy houses seem to get bigger and bigger. And maybe you're getting smaller and smaller, and you begin to walk across these little pathways, and maybe you're a little bit high up in the air, and you can walk across and you get to go through all these fairy houses, and you get that experience of feeling what it's like to be a fairy. And then there can be lots of fairy meet and greet interactions, and maybe you can meet Tinkerbell as well, and she can be in her full outfit because of course you have now shrunk down to her size, so you can meet her properly and she'll be the same size as you. And then as you leave the area, you grow again, and you see the fairy houses get smaller and smaller and smaller, and you go back onto the main path and you are back to your usual size. Here we go, so I've added the fairy trail and Tink onto the map, and then round in this corner I want there to be a Tiger Lily experience. So you can meet Tiger Lily and her people. I want you to get to a big encampment, and there'll be loads of different interactive actors, obviously all very appropriately cast. And something I think could be quite fun here is for this to be a very hands-on activity area. I think it'd be really cool if you could learn different fighting styles from different people. So maybe the Lost Boys can do some play fighting, but within the Home Under the Ground that might be a bit tricky. So maybe they can show you some of their weapons, but when you get to Tiger Lily and her people with their encampment, they can show you all these different things. Maybe they can show you how to whittle things and make things. Maybe there can be little things for sale there too. But I also think it'd be really fun for there to be a fighting area where you can do play fighting, because Tiger Lily in the original story was probably the best fighter of all of them. And I just think that having this massive gang of people who can teach you how to fight and play fight would be so cool. Maybe there can be axe throwing and knife throwing, you know, safely, and maybe there can be a little fighting arena as well, so you get to pick your LARP style weapons, your fake weapons, and they get to have play fighting, and there's photo opportunities and everything. Maybe there's dress up areas too where you get to learn about different bits of the Neverland lore and the culture of Tiger Lily and her people, and just this whole immersive, really interactive area. I really love the idea of this being a big teaching area where you can just learn different things by looking around, but you can also do it really hands-on. Think sort of like, you know, the Scouts and things like this. Very, very interactive. Maybe you can get badges and rewards for doing different things as well. And there'll be loads of different things for you to build and make and learn and just interact with if you want to. And if not, you can have a great time wandering around and watching. Something else that's kind of small that I really want to add is the frozen lake. Now, this won't actually be a real frozen lake. What I'd love to do is for there to be either fake moving water underneath or real moving water underneath. And then it's this big, clear, see-through sheet of ice that you can walk on. Maybe there are some smooth patches with some sort of squishy boulders around the outside so that you can slide on it, sort of like skating but without needing skates. You can slide along, but if you fall then there's just gentle soft places to pick you up. Maybe there can be some Lost Boys hanging out here as well who can try and teach you how to skid, but you don't need to do skidding. You can just walk across it, and it can be this really cool area where if there's real water underneath, you can look underneath and you can see fishes and different creatures, or if it's pretend, then you can see all these pretend creatures going past and all this beautiful artwork underneath to make it look like water. So I love this idea of it not being a particularly interactive space. There might be some Lost Boys or just some cast members to make sure that people are being safe, but in general it's just a pretty area that you can walk across and enjoy. So I think we're going to put that down here, and now we're going to go up to the other side of the island and see what else I've come up with. Well, bear with me, I might have to shuffle all this over just a little bit. Hang on one second. Okay, I've shuffled things across a little bit. So, and now I want to talk about one of the big set pieces. I say that. A lot of these are big set pieces, but this is the biggest new set piece. So fairly close to the center, or at least the main hub, I want there to be a new hideout. So this is going to be a huge prop tree, and it's going to have different levels inside. It's going to be the main area where people can sit and picnic. There won't be any character interactions here. I want it to be a place where if people want to just get away from characters and interactions and too much stress, you can come and sit here, you can eat. Maybe there were a few little playground areas with little swings and monkey bars and things like this, all themed, maybe some pretend little pirate ships to play on, but no characters, so you don't have to worry about interactions or anything here. And there'll be a little coffee shop, some food as well. So this is where the main food you can buy from the park will be. I'll talk about the food later on when I do the menu ideas I've got. And there'll also be things for sale as well. So outside you can sit, but there's also going to be a huge fake tree with different layers. So on the bottom, it'll be the sort of cafe and restaurant area. You can eat inside, or you can go around the outside of the tree and you can follow this round sloping path around the outside, and you can go up onto the top where you can go onto the next level and you can sit there and you can eat food on the top area, and maybe there's also some merch and something for sale on that area as well. So as you go up through the levels of the tree, there's a storage area at the top that's just for staff only, but there's lots of different balconies that you can sit on, that you can look out over the island. Maybe there's a treasure map point here as well. There's lots of views that you can see too, places you can sit, places you can eat, things that you can buy, and there are staff members there to help you out. There are new maps here as well, but it predominantly is a place where there's not too much interaction. It's just a place you can eat, you can buy some things, and you can just have a sit, and you can have a play as well. But I really want it to be this spectacular magical tree. So this huge tall prop tree building that is a brand new hideout that's sort of pretty much bang in the middle, or at least a common area that you'll be easily able to find no matter what path you follow. Something else that I really like the idea of, bringing in that scenery from the original story, is mountains and caves. I love the idea of there being prop mountains, maybe cheated a little bit like they do at Disney, so they look taller than they are. And again, as you go on the Neverbirds Sky Ride, you can go over the top of them. There'll be some snow on the top as well, little bits of snow. Let me just draw some snow in here. There we go, lovely. But I also want there to be some caves that you can explore. Maybe at the bottom, there's a sort of climbing wall that doesn't go too high, but you can practice with some like handholds and footholds, but you don't need to go up on ropes or anything. And then there'll be some little mountain paths, some trails that curve around, nice and wide, very accessible, very, very gentle slopes, so you can go up and see the sort of view through these mountains. And again, maybe you can see some Neverbird nests, some Never creatures, some different Never creatures that live up in the mountains, and there are some caves you can go through as well. And I really love the idea of there being jewels in these caves, so you can see the stalactites hanging down, the stalagmites coming up. Maybe part of them can be natural caves, maybe things can be naturally brought in, but a lot of them can be set pieces that have been built as well. And maybe they can even change a little bit for seasonal things, so you can have Halloween ones with more orange gemstones, and you can have bats hanging around, and in summers it can go to sort of greens and pastel colours, and in the summer it can be vibrant sort of reds and yellows and oranges and stuff, and in winter it can go more sort of blue. So you can go and explore, go all through the caves, and you can climb up and go through the mountains and get a little view across the island as well. And now we're going to get to another point of the island, which is just up here, the Mermaids Lagoon. Now this is hugely important because this was one of the first places I started thinking about when I thought about what I was going to do and what I was going to want to be in this sort of theme park. The Mermaids Lagoon is hugely important, and here is one of the things I want to happen. I want this to be a huge immersive interactive space with the mermaids, but I want you to have two options. So option one is you can go down the safe route, and option two is you can go down the scary route. There will be various different cast members. Maybe there's Lost Boys, maybe there's pirates there, maybe the mermaids themselves, because there'll definitely be mermaid actors. So all different types of mer creatures and mer people. They'll be out there that people can see. Maybe you can interact with them and have a chat. Maybe there's photo opportunities as well. And there'll be signposts, and it will very be clearly signposted. You can go down the safe route, or you can go down the turn of the moon scary route. I'll take you through the safe route first and what happens there. If you go the safe route around Mermaids Lagoon, then you get to see the mermaids, they're basking in the waters. You stay above ground as well. There'll be some beautiful lights, different coloured rocks. You can go through this little route and you can go mermaid spotting on the rocks. Maybe there'll be some opportunities where you can speak to the mermaids, you can sit with them, have photos, you can spot them playing in the waters, you can see them blowing bubbles and playing with the bubbles and things really far out. So off around this corner, you can see Marooners Rock, which is just over here. and you can see Starkey's stave in it as well. And you can see that as you're going around, you can do mermaid spotting, mermaid interactions. It's all very lovely, very sweet, and you can have a play around and you can see there, maybe there's some rock pools as well, maybe there's some fake creatures that you can look for, and all in all, a lovely whimsical time. You get to see the mermaids, chat to the mermaids, lovely. I also love the idea of there being a Neverbird animatronic where she is sat on Starkey's hat floating through the lagoon, and at various points you can see her just floating around. So I love the idea of all of that. Very whimsical, very sweet, very lovely. Now, if you choose to take the scary route, the turn of the moon, you follow another path, and this leads you under the ground, so it gets dark. And as you're going under, you pass by rocks and you go sort of under the water and you go to the bottom, aka you go past some tanks. You go past the bottom of Mermaid's Lagoon and you can see the mermaid grottos. You can see the little bells over all the doors in the coral reefs, and it looks very lovely, but then it gets darker and darker and darker, and you come out and you come to the surface, but now you're actually in an underground area, but you look as if you've come above the water, and the sky is all dark and you can see this tiny slither of moonlight, but it's nothing. It's the turn of the moon, so it's almost completely gone. Maybe there's some stars in the sky and a few clouds, and this is where the mermaid actors get to have some real fun, because whoever's in this scary section, they are in low light and there's little rock pools and there are screaming, echoing cries. There may be little hints of blood and claw marks everywhere, some skeletons as well. Maybe you can see another version of Marooners Rock off in the distance. Maybe you see the tide rising, you see some skeletons underneath it, that kind of thing. Really dark and twisted and scary. When I say scary, I mean it's quite scary. And this is where you get led maybe by a guide, and maybe a lost boy comes in and you have to get taken through the areas and you get told, hurry up, quick, run, they've spotted us, they can smell us, they're going to get you, run. And you all have to get out before the mermaids get you. And maybe there can be some interaction where the mermaid actors come and they press their hands against the bars, maybe as you're going past, they try to jump over the rocks, that kind of thing. So it's a little bit of a sort of scare maze, but not completely, but I do want it to be quite dark, which is why it's optional and you're warned before you go in there. And now we get to a sort of serious moment. So as well as all the whimsy and beautifulness of this park, something I would really want to do is a very special moment, which would be at Marooners Rock. So Marooners Rock is just up here. It's off in the distance, so you can see it. Marooners Rock. But I don't want this to be an accessible place. I don't want the mermaid actors to go there. I don't want you as a member of the public to be able to go there. I want it to be a rock that you can see and you can follow a path. You can come all the way up here, so you can go through the Mermaid's Lagoon and you can follow this little path up here. And I want it to be quite quiet. I want all the scariness and the action of the Mermaid's Lagoon to sort of fade out. There can be lots of different trees and things over here, lots of different bushes. So there's like a sort of a comforting calm around here. And there's a little lookout, and you can sit or stand and you can look out and you can see Marooners Rock. And I want there to be a little plaque maybe or something. And I don't want this to be a photo opportunity. What I really don't want is for people to just stand on a Marooners Rock and like take photos. So I want to take that opportunity away completely. Hear me out while I explain why. So Marooners Rock will be off. There'll be this little rock with a little Starkey stave in it, and you can look at it, you can see it. It's probably maybe 10, 15 feet away from you, and you can see it from the shore, from where you are. And there'll be a little plaque, maybe a little bench area where you can little sit and just have a think. Because Marooners Rock is not fun. It's not a fun part of the story. And I would like to take this opportunity in this little area of the park to bring up that darkness, to really make you think about it. I want there to be a little plaque that probably says something like, "To die will be an awfully big adventure," written on it. That little quote that everyone knows. I can have a little excerpt from the novel and the play, and it can talk about how Peter was alone in the dark and he was so frightened, but he decided to be brave. He faced his own death and he was brave about it. And I also think it would be a really sweet idea to bring in Great Ormond Street Hospital at this point and to talk about the bravery of those children and the legacy that Peter Pan has had for the hospital and how it keeps giving them money and the rights keep rolling over. And I think that put that on a couple of plaques there so it can just be a moment of reflection for people. I really don't want people to run up and go, look, it's Marooners Rock, and for it to be sort of silly and whimsical and lighthearted. I really want this to be a moment for optional reflection. So I want it to be out of the way, up around this little path, and there'll be a little plaque that you can read all about Great Ormond Street. Maybe there's even a little donation box. Maybe there's a QR code you can scan so you can donate to the hospital as well. It will talk about how a fraction of the ticket prices will almost definitely go to the hospital as well. And it'll talk about Marooners Rock and that moment with Peter. So I want this to be a viewing and a sort of quiet, quite serious place where you can have a little bit of contemplation and you can think about that. And then you can come back to all the chaos and the whimsy of the rest of the park. But Marooners Rock, yeah, that's very special. And I want it to be just its own very special little, almost solemn place. But all right, back to the chaos. Near the Mermaids Lagoon and of course Marooners Rock, there is going to be the pirate ship. This is of course the Jolly Roger, Captain Hook's pirate ship. This is going to be a huge set piece again, so many huge set pieces. And this is going to be an interactive space where you can go and interact. You can interact with the pirates, you can learn how to fight, you can climb all over the ship, you can meet Captain Hook, you can go under the decks, you can see the treasure stores, you can maybe play with the treasure as well, maybe you can get given a treasure. There's definitely a treasure hunt section here as well. You can meet the crew, Captain Hook can give you a chat, be very in character, you can have a photo shoot, photo opportunity, maybe you can even climb up the mast, you can go sit in the crow's nest, you can have a play with the sails, you get taught lots of different things to do with the ship, and you get taught some fighting as well by the pirates. So loads of activities here, loads of things to do as well, lots of climbing and exploring, and again, a bit like with Tiger Lily in the encampment, there's going to be lots of different things to do and you can get taught by the pirates, different styles of fighting as well, different weaponry, and maybe at certain points during the day the cannons go off as well, probably just with a big puff of bubbles and confetti and smoke, that kind of thing, not a real cannon fire, but that could be quite fun. So maybe Captain Hook comes out and maybe at midday and maybe 3 o'clock or something, they set off the cannons and they get Long Tom to just explode, that kind of thing. So the pirate ship, very exciting things for you to do, characters for you to meet, lots of interactions there, huge beautiful big set piece as well, probably connected to the mainland so that there's a sort of accessible route so you can just walk straight onto it, but you can also go across the gangplanks as well if you want to. And maybe in the warmer months there's even a section where you can walk the plank and you go either into the water or into like a ball pit, that kind of thing. So these are all the areas that I've got at the moment, and I may well add more at some point, but I've left some gaps, and that is because there are going to be rides here. Some of them are going to be big and crazy roller coasters, and some of them are going to be just little. Like we've already got the Neverbirds flight, so that goes all the way around the island, just over the top. Nice gentle ride across the top of the island. But what other rides have we got? Well, let's start with the big one. So the big main roller coaster is this, the flight, which is why I'm being careful. The Neverbirds is called the Neverbirds, not the Neverbird flight. So we've got the Neverbirds, which is the nice gentle ride around the island. The flight, which has been named after the chapter in the novel, which is a beautiful chapter, but there's some terrifying things that happen, which makes it a very apt name. So, the flight, the biggest, craziest, scariest roller coaster. This will go the fastest, it will go up in the air, do lots of rolls and loads of spinning, go really, really fast and twirl around and around and around. And I think that we should probably put this somewhere near the Lost Boys hideout and the fairy experience. Alright, so, the flight, the big main roller coaster. What else have we got? Well, what theme park would be complete without a water ride? So I've put in a water ride / log flume area. Now this is going to be off near the pirate ship. So I reckon you should get into your own little mini pirate ship, or maybe a Neverbird nest, so it can be one then the other. So you can jump into a little nest or into a pirate ship, and then you get to go round and you get to explore around the lagoon. Maybe you can see more of the Mermaids Lagoon, bits of the water where the Jolly Roger is, and you go round this beautiful set piece. Maybe you see some Neverbirds and some creatures, some fairy inhabitants and that kind of thing. And then you go up a little dip, and then you go down and you splash into this big sort of splash pool. Maybe there'll be little bridges over the top as well where people can go and squirt you and spray you with water guns. So that area, which I'm not necessarily sure I've got a name for yet, I think we'll just call it the water ride. So we'll call it the water ride and we'll put it over here. So the water ride. Speaking of the pirates, I also think we should have a rocking pirate ship. Maybe it could be called something like Setting Sail, and it's just a big ship that swings in the air. So again, we're going to put this sort of close to the pirate ship. So we're going to have the big pirate swinging ship here as well. Some other little rides, of course, we've got the Neverbirds one, but I also think there could be one that's called maybe the Pirate's Jig, which is just a little sort of carousel that goes round and round, and maybe you can sit in a little pirate ship and you just go round in a gentle little circle or a gentle figure of 8 and you can see some pirates' treasure, that kind of thing. So a smaller, gentler little, I don't even want to call it a coaster, just a little gentle ride to go round. So again, that can all be happening near the Pirates' Water just over here. This whole area will be called Kids Creek. So I'm just going to put that here, Kids Creek. So Kids Creek, which is this area here where all the pirate stuff is happening. So you got Kids Creek, the Pirate River, all of this in the pirate zone over here. I also like the idea of having a mermaid coaster. So this I've called the Lagoon Dive. And this is where you start in a sort of rock pool and then you follow the coaster, and it's not too fast, but it does lots of dips. So you sort of dive in and out of the water and you go up and down and up and down. And maybe there's a big drop where you drop under the water again and you go through all those lagoons and the coral reefs. So this is an up and down coaster. It doesn't necessarily roll or go upside down, just lots of big dips and drops, that kind of thing. I think that's all of the rides I've come up with so far, but I may well add more, so bear with me for any more of those. And now we're going to move on to the food, the activities, the things that you can see. And I think I'm going to start with the activities and then we'll finish on the food. So, activities and various things that you can see and experience. So, other than all the characters you can interact with, so we've got Peter, we've got Tinkerbell, we've got the Lost Boys, we've got Wendy, John and Michael, we've got Captain Hook and the Pirates, we've got Tiger Lily and all of her band. All of this, I think that'll be amazing. And then we also have the creatures themselves. We've got gnomes and fairies. We've got the old lady. We've got magical creatures from the Neverland. I also want there to be lots of just other people maybe roaming with puppets. So maybe there's puppet Neverbirds you can meet and interact with. Maybe there's people with them sort of on their hands that can talk to you, and some with big puppets on strings. I just love the idea of it being this very immersive, big space full of creatures that you can interact with and see and speak to. But also, as you're moving through, you can see the fairy houses. There's lights and twinkling glitter everywhere, so you can feel this life even if you can't see it. And there's definitely gnome houses as well. And all these different sort of areas where it's clear there are hideouts and people just inhabit this place. It definitely feels like a place that people live and explore and have adventures in. I think that there should be some lion's paw prints and a big circle that's been drawn in the dirt where Peter was holding off the lions. Something that people can look at and just think is quite fun. And if you know the original story, then you'll recognize it as from that, but otherwise you'll just see paw prints and a circle in the ground and think it's quite fun. Obviously lots of different treasure spots, different hideouts. I'd also quite like there to be lots of different options for dressing up. So sometimes interactive areas with different characters, but maybe sometimes just an area where there are just some gnome hats that you can try on and different things. Probably some staff members to make sure people aren't pinching them, but I definitely love the idea of dress up being something you can do here quite a lot. I love the idea of a lot of the seats being themed, so they'll be made to look like mushrooms, like giant mushrooms, and like big pumpkins, and little shrubs and leaves and things like this. I love the idea of that. I also love the idea of there being a crocodile that you can see, a big, big crocodile. Maybe it's another animatronic, and you can hear the ticking as you get closer and closer, and then you can peer through the leaves and you can see this crocodile. Maybe it gets moved during the day as well. I would also really like you to be able to spot the pirate's rich, damp cake. So somewhere on the island, there's just going to be this big, rich, damp, green pirate cake that's sort of gone a bit mouldy and gross. And I'd love the idea of you being able to spot that. And again, if you don't know the original source material, it's just something silly and weird that you found. But if you do, maybe there can be a little plaque with some information next to it about the pirate's rich, damp cake and how you should definitely not eat it. And I also really love the idea of just everywhere you turn, there's something. Even if it's just something you can do quietly by yourself, there's always something that you can do, something to look at, something to explore, something that visually can take your attention. On the floor as well, I want all the floor to be exciting as well as all the way up into the trees, and lots of signposts as well so you know where you're going. Something else I would really like to play with is the seasons. Now, because this is probably going to be an outdoors area, that will be quite tricky to do, but I do love the idea that the seasons can change wherever you're going. Maybe it won't be something that can completely change as much as the island would itself, but maybe different areas can be different seasons. For example, you've got the frozen river, and then maybe as you move towards the Wendy House, it's more spring. As you come into the island, it's all spring. Maybe it's summer over here near the beach, and then as you move over here, you get towards the winter in the mountains, and the winter over here. So you've got two different bits of winter, and then you've got a spring and a summer, and then maybe over here it's more sort of autumny, and you get to the Mermaids Lagoon, it's a little bit cooler again. So autumn for Tiger Lily's camp, maybe to feel sort of warm and cozy, and then moving all through the springs, and then maybe a little bit more of the sort of winters on this side, and then it comes back through to the summer. So playing with the seasons and have that be different for the different creatures, what they look like. Maybe there's snow on the beaks of some of the birds. Maybe in the summer you've got more vibrant colours. So the whole thing is very vibrant, but maybe the flowers are just a little bit different in the summer, and then over in the autumn areas too. I think that could be really special. But then of course for different seasons throughout the year, you could change the theming too. When it's more Christmassy, you can have more Christmassy things in the wintry sections, etc. But I definitely want to play with the seasons. That could be really fun. I also think that some of the merch that you can get can be seasonal, so there can be different seasons. So there can be like 4 different versions of things, or maybe 5. There can be one that's got sort of everything, and then there's one that's the winter version, the summer version, the spring version, the autumn version, that kind of thing. I think that could be quite a fun way of dividing things up and making things themed as well. Maybe even the different merch shops, maybe the main hub, so the main tree, that's got all the seasons, but the other places, they've got their own. So there might be a merch place that's over by the pirates, and that's got wintry, piratey things. Maybe over here near the beach, these areas with the gnomes, they've got the more summery stuff. Maybe near the Wendy House and the Den building of the Lost Boys hideout, this is more spring. And then up here by the Mermaids Lagoon, you've got more of the autumnal stuff. So you have to sort of go all over the island to find it. But if you want to, you can just get it all at the main hubbub as well. But I love the idea of there being different things to collect and find wherever you're going. The last thing we're going to talk about then is the food and the drinks, because I've got some ideas, but I'd love to open this up to you guys for suggestions as well. So 2 things that I will say about this first off. Number 1, no alcohol. This isn't going to be an alcohol place. I just don't like the idea of anyone being drunk and wandering around here. That would completely ruin it. I don't think it's necessary. So no alcohol. And I'm also, on a personal note, gonna say no meat. Yes, on the Neverland and in the original story, they do talk about hunting, and they do obviously hunt animals and they eat things like that. However, I am inventing this park, so I'm going to say nah. I think it's more fun and more creative, and also in terms of worrying about cooking things, it's just a lot easier to not have to worry about cooking meat. So we're going to have no meat products, and you can all lump it. So the food will be mostly here, the main area, but you can get little snacks, and obviously you can bring in your own as well if you want to bring in a picnic. But here are some of the Neverlandy ideas I've got for the menu options. So in terms of the beverages, I think obviously we should have milkshakes. I think milkshakes are great fun, and these can be veggie or vegan milkshakes. They can be dairy free and free of everything and whatever. So they can be done with ice creams and yogurts, and you can have berries, you can have strawberries, you can have chocolate. So loads of different thick, fun milkshakes. And I think they should be covered in sprinkles and rainbows and squirty cream and all this. Maybe there's loads of different toppings you can pick from too. A very whimsical, fairy, fae-like sort of confectionery bar that you can put on top of your milkshakes. Obviously there should also be fruit juices, and I love the idea of there being unusual fruit juices. Like I love black cherry, but it's very expensive. Lychee juice, that kind of thing. And also you can get obviously orange and apple and mango and grapefruit and all of this. I just love the idea of there being a huge selection of these beautiful, colourful juices that you can mix them together. Maybe they come in cartons, that kind of thing. So lots of juice. I really want juice now. I've got orange. Oh, I'm gonna have to go get some juice. That is so much better. I got myself all hyped over juice now. So loads of juices, lots of different fruits. I love the idea of having maybe coconut as well. You can even maybe use coconuts as some of the mugs. Maybe there can be fake ones and real ones. You can take them home, etc. I love the idea of them being for sale in the merch shops. Maybe I'll do a little section where I think about merch, but to be honest, I'm going to leave that a little bit. Sort of, I know seasonal and general sort of, you know, some jewelry, some clothing, things that are cheap, things that are expensive, the variety of things, that kind of thing. So I'll leave that for a while. Obviously copies of the play and the book, all of the books. So The Little White Bird, you can get Peter Pan and Kensington Gardens if you want just that bit. You can get the play scripts, you can get other J.M. Barrie works, and you can of course get Peter Pan as well, the original copy of Peter Pan. Now, I love the idea of also making an original cover for it as well for the park. Anyway, so back on with that. So you can get different milkshakes, different drinks, different squashes. Obviously like teas, coffees, hot chocolates, that kind of thing as well. And I really love the idea of using sort of coconut or pretend coconut shells to use as some of the mugs. Oh, I've also come up with some Neverland mocktails. So these are non-alcoholic cocktails, but I think they could look really, really fun. So here they are. I'm going to take this off the wall to read this. So, Neverland mocktails. Number 1, the fairy tipple. This is called the Fairy Tipple. It is very glittery, so it comes with edible glitter all over it. So it comes in a sort of very tall, bright glass. Maybe it's got a little sparkler in it as well. Glitter around the rim, maybe some popping candy. And it comes in bright yellow, and it's very lemony. So very lemony, very lime, not necessarily sour completely, probably quite sweet. Very, very bright though, very, very glittery. It sort of almost glows as you look at it. We've also got the Mermaid Splash. This is going to be bright blue. Again, lots of vibrant colours here. Not horribly sickly like E number bright blue. We'll try to do it as naturally as we can. So very, very bright blue. I want there to be some foam or cream on the top, maybe as like a little wave, maybe a little bit sour this one too. So this one might have some popping candy as well, and maybe a sprinkle of some cracked salt or something on the top. And then we've got one I've called the Lost Boys Punch. So this is going to have fake twigs and leaves in it. Maybe they're edible, or maybe they're like sort of ice cubes and they're made to look like fake leaves and twigs. It's going to be very green and very fruity. Probably come in quite a tall, thick glass so you can see all the way down, and you can see the like maybe chocolatey sort of twigs and leaves and things going all the way through. I just think that'll be really fun. And then I've got the Pirate Poison. This one is going to be red. Red like Captain Hook's eye. It's going to be very sinister. I'd love it to be served in a medicine cup. So it's going to be in sort of like a flower type cup that the Lost Boys would have used in the hideout under the ground. And I want it to be flavoured with black cherry. So it's very, very dark red, very, very rich, very, very thick, very, very lovely, a little bit syrupy. And it's going to be, just deliciously evil. And then I've got one that's called Popo, which is named after one of the drinks that J.M. Barrie references in the original source material. He seems to have been roughly inspired by some real world things, but he's taken a twist on them. So I'm going to try very hard to do a twist and not just do real world equivalents of things. So the Popo drink is going to be dark purple, fruity, and just a little bit spiced. A bit like mulled wine, but a little bit sweeter and obviously non-alcoholic. So those are all my Neverland mocktails: the Fairy Tipple, the Mermaid Splash, the Lost Boys Punch, the Pirate Poison, and the Popo Juice. So which one of those would you like? Let me know in the comments down below. And now we shall move on to some of the ideas for Neverland food that I've got. So I've got savoury and I've got sweet, and some of this is inspired by my Eat Like a Neverlander week that I did, and I'm going to do a part 2 where I'm going to use all the things referenced in the books, and I'm going to try to use natural things, and I'm going to go for a whole week eating like a Neverlander and making some recipes for you guys as well. So again, inspired by things from the original story, we've got tapper rolls, again, inspired by. So I've put these as pastry rolled a bit like a sausage roll with mixed vegetables and potatoes and herbs. So this can be veggie or vegan, maybe there can be some cheese in it too. So savoury roll pastries. I'm really hungry now. I've also put baked potatoes with fillings, so cheese, beans, veggie chili, coleslaw, roast veg, etc, etc. Obviously some sandwiches, paninis, you can have them hot or cold, various different fillings. I've also put, you could have one option which is the Mermaid Banquet, which can be for one person or it can be a sharing platter. And this is going to have potatoes baked in shell shapes. So a bit like when you do Hasselback potatoes, you can sort of cut them into shapes. So we're going to have shell-shaped potatoes, veg cut into starfish and shell shapes, and a selection of dips as well. So maybe there can be sort of like chicken nuggets, but like veggie chicken nuggets cut into various different star shapes and like fish and things like this. So that can be put in there too with a selection of dippy dips. I've also got the Lost Boys selection, which again can be for a solo or a sharing platter. I've got, again, veggie nuggets, but this time in the shape of mushrooms. And we're going to have potato wedges and fun dips as well. And probably some salad and stuff to go with this too. And then I've put the Pirates Platter. Again, you can have it for one person or as a sharing thing. And this is going to be a pastry boat shape with veggies cut out to vaguely pirate-ish shapes, or maybe like swords and cannons, that kind of thing. And a veggie stuffing and gravy filling. Man, I'm hungry. So it's going to be like a pastry boat, maybe almost like a pastry tart that's going to have some like gravy and then some potato and like veggies and stuffing and stuff and little pirate shapes. Oh man, I'm hungry. Moving on to the sweet options now. So something that's referenced in the original story is mame or meme apples, and I love the idea of drawing on that. So we're going to use real apples, and they're either going to be served solo or as a dessert with cream. So this is, I don't know how to describe it. It's a real type of fruit. So I'm either going to make something to look like it or just get the real sort of fruit. And it's going to be sort of beautiful and garnished and sort of drizzled in this like glittery sort of outer shell, and it can either be served sort of almost on a stick or to hold in your hand, or it can be served as its own dessert, cut in half with cream and custard, things like this. I've also got pastries, cakes, all glittery and themed, fairies, pirates, the island in general, Lost Boys themed, Peter Pan themed, Tinkerbell, etc, etc. So all different themes of cakes and pastries. I also had the idea of having this never egg, so sort of like a ostrich egg sized egg that's a fake egg that's like made of chocolate, and this can be chocolate that's edible to everybody, so veggie, vegan, whatever it is, and inside there's this like layered pudding, almost like a trifle or a tiramisu, so it would have layers, and maybe outside it can be a nest of little sort of like chocolate twigs, that kind of thing, a bit like the twigs we put into the Lost Boys mocktail. And I love this idea of this sort of like Neverbird nest with this egg that you like crack into, and then inside is all this dessert. Oh, that sounds so good. And then the last thing I've got is a slice of rich, damp cake. So this is going to be green icing, maybe a chocolate and cherry cake, maybe a little bit wonky if you get like a mini version of it, or maybe it's served in slices. So I think it should be a little bit wonky, green icing. Maybe you can make it green inside as well. That could be really fun. So for the sweets, I've got meme apples, pastries, cakes and glittery things, a never egg, and a slice of rich, damp cake. That, I think, is pretty much everything on my list so far. So, we've got options for food, we've got seasonal merch, we've got the island itself, we've got the glittery, rainbowy beach, we've got the beach where you can hide out and you can do things, we've got the gnomes, we've got the old lady in her potion shop, we've got clothes, we've got the lagoon dive where you go up and down on the roller coaster, you can spot the pirate's rich damp cake, you've got the Wendy House, you've got den building, you've got the flight where you go up on this huge crazy roller coaster, you've got the Neverbirds where you soar all over the island and have a look at things, you've got the frozen river, you've got the Fairydust experience where you can fly on a harness, you've got the fairy Tink trail where you can get smaller and smaller up into the trees and you can go see Tinkerbell, you've got the Lost Boys hideout where you can see the Lost Boys and learn how to fight and have photos and you can see Peter and the Lost Boys, you've got Tiger Lily's camp where you can meet Tiger Lily and you can learn how to fight and to make things, and you've got the mountains and the caves where you can go climbing up in the mountains and you can go into the caves and you can see all the glistening treasure hoards, you've got Set Sail and the water ride, and you've got Kids Creek with the pirate with the Jolly Roger and you can go on the pirate ship, you've got the main hideout tree where you can get your food, you can get your merch, you can have a hangout, you can chill out, you can have a sit, you can do whatever you like. And then you've got the Mermaids Lagoon where you've got the scary and the safe paths where you can go round and you can see all the mermaids and have those scary or safe interactions. You've got the sweet little corner where you've got Marooners Rock where you can think about the darker side of what happened in the story, and you've also got the references to Great Ormond Street Hospital as well. And all through the park you've got this great huge theming, you've got magic everywhere, you've got whimsy, you've got characters, you've got interactions, you've got fairies, you've got homes, you've got hideouts, you've got everything, you've got themed food, you've got mocktails, you've got everything you could possibly want. And then at the end of the day you will either catch a boat or you will go back across the bridge to the car park, you will go across the glittering rainbow sands and you will leave the island and you will go back home. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Would anyone like to, give me millions and millions of pounds so I can make this? I will do a video at some point about the immersive Peter Pan play I want to do, because that feels vaguely more attainable. But in the meantime, what do you guys think? Here's the map. I don't want to take this down off my wall now. I wish I'd drawn it a bit better, but you see the vision. You see the vision. What do you guys think? Would you guys visit? Anything you'd like to add, take away, etc.? Chuck your ideas in the comments down below. And as ever, if you guys want to throw in your ideas, pop them in the comments down below or on the TikTok page, and I will try to do a video or reply to you as soon as I can. Thank you for watching. Bye.